A lot of people thought Biohackers was a documentary, and if that, I didn't record any of that. You guys will see a disorder information later. It's okay, I'll cut it in. It'll all make sense in editing, don't worry. It's snowing! Well, hello there and welcome to my channel. My name is Michelle and today I cannot contain myself because I need to talk about this. It's gonna be a rant review, so buckle up, Buttercup, and let's hop into it. I just watched this show on Netflix about a week ago and it still is in the back of my head irking me, so I figured, okay, we gotta talk about it. I can't keep this to myself any longer, and yes, I am going to complain about some things. I did overall pretty much enjoy it, but these things really took me out of the show in a way that's just like, why? So we're gonna talk about why. Of the show. The premise is pretty cool. So we have this main character who's a geneticist and she's trying to get a internship kind of thing with this really famous popular geneticist who has like changed the world of science by being amazing, and she wants to work for her. We're like, something weird's going on there. She's got a bunch of newspaper clippings of this lady, but she just must be really obsessed with her. So we continue on in this journey as this girl tries to get a job with that lady. So let's get into talking about why this show really irked me despite having an amazing premise. All right. I probably didn't explain the premise that well. I mean, it's like a psychological sci-fi thriller, and who doesn't love a sci-fi thriller? But let's talk about why I didn't love this sci-fi thriller. Spoilers for somebody who doesn't want to know the spoiler here. First of all, the science. Like, can we just talk about the science for a quick second? They're geneticists, right? So they're dealing with genetic manipulation. Think splice, you know, they can like manipulate genetics in the way that they want, except it's nothing like splice because they're not making weird mutants, they're making genetic vaccines and stuff. They're solving genetic issues. So pretty soon we get to learn some things about the science in this world, and the science in this world is pretty different from real life, even though they seem to be claiming that they're real life. I mean, people have iPhones and Macs. Everyone has an iPhone and a Mac, okay? Is it a sci-fi if they don't? Let's just talk about one of the main characters, okay? So there's this guy, and he works for the scientists because he's got a genetic issue. What is that genetic issue, might we say? He's got Huntington's disease. Let's just do a quick little Google search. All right, let's just look up Huntington's disease. Just a quick Google. Huntington's disease is a fatal genetic disorder that causes progressive breakdown of nerve cells in the brain. So they did get that right. It is a fatal genetic disorder. That being said, let's just do a little bit more research, shall we? Still on the main page of Google, have you? It typically starts in the 30s or 40s. Okay, so I did some research, I went a little further, and it is possible that it could be impacting somebody in their early 20s, which is the age of the main character. It is possible. But let's look at symptoms. Let's just go to good old Mayo Clinic and go to some symptoms. First of all, it has a broad impact on the person's functional abilities and usually results in movement, thinking, and psychiatric disorders. It can develop at any time, but most often in the 30s or 40s. It could happen when you're younger, but that would be called juvenile Huntington's disease. And the symptoms can be different. It could cause involuntary jerking, muscle problems, slow eye movements, impaired walking abilities, difficult speaking, some like ADHD symptoms here, And psychiatric, you could get insomnia or social withdrawal or irritability. Let's look over this character Jasper for a second, shall we? Has he displayed any of these symptoms? No, he's like a scientific genius. He definitely has his wits about him in terms of mental stuff. Yes, he's like taking her medicine or whatever, but here are the symptoms he shows us when he fails to have his medicine on time, or he like takes a dose of something that didn't come out right. It's not really explained what happens, but what happens is this. He gets woozy, he falls over, and he's very sick all of a sudden. He's got a fever and he can't speak. Yeah, that happened like instantly. Like she went upstairs, messed with some stuff, came downstairs, and he's falling over because he's got a fever and he's passing out basically. So she calls his friend and she's like, "Yo dude, he's dying." And his friend comes over and they're in the house and he's like, "We need to call the scientist lady." And so they call the scientist lady and she drops everything she's doing to come back and she basically explains to the main character how to make a concoction that's going to like counteract what he's dealing with. But my question is, what does that have to do with Huntington's disease? That was like the first time that there was some science there that I literally didn't even have to Google that hard to show that what they're showing me is not the disease they're claiming. What I feel like happened is they did the Google search. They saw the overview which says Huntington's disease is a fatal genetic disorder, and they kind of ran with it because they were like, oh, no one's going to do more Googling than that. It's a fatal genetic disorder. It's going to be perfect because the geneticist, you get it? You get it? He's a geneticist and he's got a genetic disease that literally like makes him have a fever and fall over and faint at like 22 years old, if even. So that was the first time that I was like, that doesn't make sense. It took very little work to prove that it didn't make sense. So I was on the lookout a little bit more after that. I was like, what other kind of science are they gonna throw in here that's gonna make no sense? So I kept watching and I was becoming increasingly disinterested in the fact that the science just like was not even fact checked at all. It made me question everything that I had seen up until then. Like, if they couldn't get a simple, well-known genetic disorder correctly, what else have they done completely wrong? The other sciencey thing that was easily disproven with the quickest of Google searches was the virus that they later used. So in the opening scene, you have people like passing out because they're sick from something. And you find out later that the reason that they're sick is because of mosquitoes that are carrying a disease. What disease, might you ask? Well, it's carrying Coxsackie disease or something. Okay, so it's Coxsackie virus. I swear to God the writers were trolling with us, or they literally did no research and they just wanted to use a disease that would be hard to Google, I guess. But I mean, I Googled it in literally 10 seconds. This show came out in 2020. I Googled this in 10 seconds. So let's see what Coxsackie's is. Coxsackie is a virus that may cause hand, foot, and mouth disease, which is basically a disease where you get little bumpies, little hives on your body. All right, so maybe that's not enough information. I want to know more about Coxsackie. What symptoms does this give us? This one, type A, causes sores in the throat, hand, foot, and mouth. Okay, and the other type could cause fever and spasms in the abdomen and chest. Okay, so it could cause seizures and abdominal and chest muscle issues. All right, so that kind of makes sense. People in the show, they're just instantly having heart attacks and fevers, so that technically is a real symptom. Let's talk about the incubation period, right? Incubation period is the period between when you get infected and when you start showing symptoms. So the incubation period of Coxsackie virus is 1 to 2 days in general. How long did they have before they started showing symptoms? 5 minutes? 4 minutes? Less than that? Literally, they got infected and started having symptoms. I need to talk about this because it relates to this previous point, but it also moves into the plot issues, which was one of my greatest frustrations with the show. The plot conveniences were literally everywhere. But one of the main plot conveniences is this. The mosquitoes. All right, so these mosquitoes, they infect people, sure. It infects them immediately. Okay, they're geneticists. Sure, they could make the virus react more quickly. It's not likely, but it's plausible. Like I could suspend my disbelief for a second to believe that, even though it's incredibly unlikely. I could potentially see that. But here's what doesn't make sense. Why? Why are there these mosquitoes that infect people with Coxsackie virus? Remember that geneticist I was talking about who had Huntington's disease and like he passed out and had a fever and all that? His pet hobby is to make mosquitoes which infect people with dangerous diseases as quickly as possible. That's his pet hobby. That's what he wants to spend his geneticist life working on, is these mosquitoes that transmit diseases as quickly as possible. What on earth is he going to do this for? What on earth is this going to benefit him in his life in any way? How does he think this is a good scientific move? None of it is explained. It is just explained that his pet hobby is to make mosquitoes that spread disease as fast as possible. All right, so while I was editing, I came up with a potential solution to this. Perhaps because he's on the verge of dying at any single second, he finds it important to take it upon himself to make as many people sick as possible before he dies so that he can kill as many people so that the world will know what it's like to truly suffer with Huntington's disease. Pretty sure that's it. Now, I don't know about you all, but I don't believe that there's a person out there who really thinks that. If there is somebody out there whose pet hobby is to make flies that spread disease as quickly as possible, then they most certainly are some weird, like, hermity kind of super geek scientist dude who's literally doing it just to see if it's possible. This guy did not fit the bill, all right? He didn't fit the bill at all. He was also falling asleep in class. Literally, we never see him being a scientist, but we're told to believe. All right, so that is the biggest problem with this show, is we are told over and over and over to believe that these people are scientists, right? This main character is a genius. She's one of the best in the class. She's super creative. She made this stuff that was like red glow in the dark when everyone else was making green glow in the dark, which is like just proof of how good of a scientist she is, right? Well, as I mentioned with this Coxsackie virus, they need a vaccine for that to help all the people in the train who instantly had heart attacks and fevers, because that's how viruses work. So they needed to make this vaccine get from point A to point B. Well, they only had one, and there's like 30 people who are infected. So what do? They need to replicate and duplicate the vaccine. They need to make copies of the vaccine so there's enough to go around. But your girl cannot do it alone, apparently. The main character literally doesn't have the skill to replicate a vaccine. So she needs to call in her friend whose forte is plant biology and making them glow in the dark, something that our girl did in the very second episode. She made glow in the dark stuff. So she needed her friend who makes glow in the dark trees to come help her and make copies of a vaccine. My question is, why on earth could she not do it herself? And two, why of all people that she would pull in, would she pull in that person who's literally done nothing with any vials and has only ever manipulated plants? It doesn't make sense. The thing is, my friends, if I find a logical flaw in something, that's bad. I am not very good at seeing these kinds of logical flaws. It's something that I really have to try hard to do. But in this show, it just made it so easy. It was like, here's something weird. That doesn't make sense. Here's something else that's kind of weird. Try to make sense of that. No, they don't make sense. They have nothing to do with reality, and they seem to exist purely so that this show can have some thriller aspects that's completely unrealistic and could have been really cool, but they tried to make it so cool that it would be blowing your mind and you'd be on the edge of your seat. And I wasn't, because it didn't feel real at all. It felt like I was watching like a fantasy, like a science fiction fantasy that's like, oh, this is what could happen with technology. Totally. Fear the scientists, fear the vaccines, the people who make them are crazy. I don't know if that's the message that they were trying to get across. That's the message that I received. Just saying. The last and most frustrating part of this all was the characters. I could get past some caricaturized people, I could get past some cliches, but when you put cliche on top of all these other problems, it's just like, what is there to like? What is there to like? I mean, I definitely was on the edge of my seat at times, but as soon as I realized that none of the science made any sense, it made me question if any of the science made sense, and then all I could think about was, oh, a fox! I just saw a fox in the snow. That was cool. I wish that you guys could have seen it. It had a big bushy orange tail. So cute. Okay, I'm sorry, where was I? In short, I didn't like this show. Okay, if you guys follow me on Twitter, I posted when I first started watching the series that I thought it was kind of cool. I even think that I mentioned something on Instagram. I was like, guys, Biohackers is kind of cool. What do you think? No one had seen it. A lot of people thought Biohackers was a documentary, and if that... If only they knew the irony in that statement. But hey guys, that's all I gotta say about this. I just really wanted to rant a little bit, and sure, there were things, I mean, I liked it overall. I thought it was fun. I thought it had some cool characters. Some were really cliche and annoying, but some were pretty cool. I really liked this one Asian girl. Hearing her speak German at 20 miles per hour while being all NE and all over the place was fun. It's fun to watch any characters who are caricaturized like that, because I love me some hyper NE. Who doesn't? But overall, the show was very painful, and I needed to talk about my pain because it has been over a week and I am still feeling the pain. Thank you for coming and joining me in this pain journey, and I hope that you have a much improved day because of it. While you're here and while I've still got you listening, please just click like and subscribe right there. You got it? All right, thank you so much. And while you're down there, go ahead and comment your thoughts on any sci-fi where they have really bad science, or just, you know, anything really. If you want to complain about a TV show, now's the place to rant, because I love hearing rants. Who doesn't? It's just fun. It's just fun to hear people like rant about something. Anyway, thank you so much for watching, and I hope that you have a beautiful, amazing, fantastic day. Bye!